All right, Charlie, I'm going to give you a little bit of assistance here and anybody else that wants to listen and watch this video. So we're looking at number 5 right here. I got one sheet open here. We're just going to kind of redraw it a little bit more simplified so you guys can see what's going on. And then I'll switch over to this other sheet and we'll actually solve it. So right here, we can see all the values. We have what looks like a complicated circuit here. And we just did this one up in class right now with a bunch of the guys too. And it seemed like the benefit to everybody else that was having a little bit of a harder time with it was to redraw it in kind of like a ladder method to kind of see exactly what's going on here. And there's a couple ways you can redraw it. We'll look at a couple right now. But the most important thing is make sure you write it in a way where you can see what's in series and what's in parallel so that you can understand what operations need to take place. If you can see it the way it sits right now, that's fine. Some guys can solve it right there just the way it looks. But if you can't visualize and you can't understand that certain things are in series and parallel, then you can't take the first steps to solve it. So I'll just make a couple observations and then we'll take a look at redrawing it a little bit differently here. So right off the bat, as you can see from these, all three of these resistors, R3, R4, and R5, they're in series with each other. And if you look at it, those resistors that are in series, that total for R3, R4, and R5 are in parallel with R2. So the total of these is completely parallel to the total of just R2. So we're going to look at that and we're going to redraw that. And then when you look at the total that you'd get from this whole parallel branch over here, that total is going to be in series with R1 and R6. So if you can see that, if you can't, we'll redraw it. But either way, that's really what's going on here. That's the bottom line. So let's go ahead and write this out a little bit differently. So I'm going to put the battery right here. So we got 24 volts. We're going to come up and over, and we're going to have our first resistor right there. So that's going to be R1. From there, we have a node right here, and then we're going to have a split. We're going to have two separate branches. So we got a node right here. We have one branch that comes up, and I have a couple resistors there. I have R3, R4, and R5. So that would be simulated here. And all three of those are in parallel with R2. So our other branch coming down this way only has R2 in it, and the branch going this direction has 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and then we'll write that out. So at this point, we already have this direction covered. Going this direction, we're going to add another branch. There's only one resistor, and that's R2. Those are going to come together, come back down, and then we have R6 here. So right here, we have R3, R4, R5, R2, and R6. So take a minute and look at how this is drawn here and how the rest of these are oriented, and just kind of see if that makes sense to you. Because if you can't see how these are laid out, it's going to be a little bit challenging to kind of understand why we're doing some of the series and parallel operations in the next couple steps. So we'll see that if we come out of the battery over here at 24 volts, we have to go through R1, which we're doing here, coming up, and we're going through R1. We pass through that, come to a branch, which we could go either direction on. So I have that branch here. We could go up or down. Taking the upper path will take us through R3, R4, R5, which is what we're having up here, and back. And taking the lower path will take us through R2, which will meet back up with the other end. From there, at this node, we now go through R6 and back to the battery. And from here, you can see we do the same thing on the other side. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. We'll go ahead and erase this here. And we'll see if maybe we can redraw it another way. So if that was kind of hard to see for you, we'll go ahead and draw it a little differently. So we got 24 volts again. We're going to come up and over, and again we're going to have R1, and then we're going to have a branch going down and a branch coming over and going down as well. Here we're going to have a resistor, a resistor, a resistor, and here we're just going to have one resistor. Here we have another resistor. Now this is going to be the same representation here as the other one we drew. So if you see it a little bit easier this way, then write it this way. So right here, the first one we're going to go through is R1. Over here, if we take the lower path, which will be the first option, we have R2. If you continue on to R3, R4, and R5, those are all in parallel with R2. And then finally, we have to go through R6 again. So these are all just rewrites of the previous circuit to help you simplify it and see exactly why you're doing series or parallel operations. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here, and I'll start a new one for actually solving it, just so it doesn't get too long. If you're having trouble visualizing the circuit, this will be a very helpful video for you. If you see how the circuit's laid out but can't solve the math behind it, I'll record another one for you shortly.